this whole journey, I have been learning about myself and learning what's important to me and how I want to show up and how I want to make an impact and the life that I had led up until that point. And what I realized through all of these steps and being in the right room and having the conversations and having people ask me conversations where my answer is, I've never thought of it that way. I need to process that, or I need to think about it, or wow, what a great question. Let me get back to you. In that part of the journey, in that I've realized that there's things that I want to do, that I want to show up differently, that I want to show up in a bigger way. And that requires me to do some scary things, to get out of my comfort zone, to get out of this box that I have put myself in. Welcome to the Power of Expression podcast, where you get to show up and express all of you, whatever that looks like, and enjoy the journey along the way. So today's topic is near and dear to my heart, and I'm excited to have this conversation. It is around risk versus regret. And this is something that has been a big motivator for me and a big driver in my life the last few years. I am a J. Hill Burns stylist. I've been with the company for 10 years. I have a fashion background, and I absolutely love what I do. I love my clients. I love meeting new clients. I love my team. I love coaching and mentoring my team. I love all of it. But I also know that there's this other side of me, that I'm not just one-sided, just like all of us are not one-sided. We are all multifaceted. We are all multi-layered and multi-passionate. So the last few years, I have really been diving into other things that I am passionate about, other things that really drives me, that I want to learn more about. But that also means putting myself out there in a new way. And that is really scary. And I have been on this journey really 13 years of learning and growing, expanding and evolving. That's kind of the steps that I reference. And, 13 years ago, it was my version of rock bottom. And I believe that we all have our own version of rock bottom. It's whatever that looks like and feels like for you. And so for me, I hit my rock bottom in 2010 and finally reached out for help and started working with this amazing coach and therapist and expert in all things personal development. Her name's Kathy. And I could spend an episode just talking about Kathy. But what Kathy helped me with was really peeling back the layers and really doing a lot of healing that needed to happen first before I took the next steps. So I did that. So I did a lot of healing. And in the healing, I did a lot of growth in that. And then my next kind of bucket or next lane was doing a lot of reading and a lot of personal development reading, a lot of leadership reading, autobiographies, how other successful people reach their dreams, their visions, their path in life. Success leaves clues, right? So I was learning through books. And then I started in the podcast world, listening to podcasts. And then mixed in all of that was then starting to go to seminars and workshops and in-person events with 500 other powerful women having the same insecurities and the same doubts and the same dreams and visions and passions, and asking the big questions. And the bigger the question, the bigger the answer. So the deeper that you have to go to find the answer, you can no longer answer in just a superficial way, right? So there was that journey. And through this whole journey, I have been learning about myself and learning what's important to me and how I want to show up and how I want to make an impact, and the life that I had led up until that point. And what I realized through all of these steps and being in the right room and having the conversations and having people ask me conversations where my answer is, I've never thought of it that way. Um, I need to process that, or I need to think about it, or wow, what a great question. Let me get back to you. In that part of the journey, in that I've realized that there's things that I want to do, that I want to show up differently, that I want to show up in a bigger way. And that requires me to do some scary things, to get out of my comfort zone, to get out of this box that I have put myself in. My life's journey, and really looking at it from a bird's eye view and seeing and acknowledging, it's always acknowledging the things that I've accomplished and being proud of myself, but also where are my regrets and how can I show up in a bigger way, because I want to make an impact, because I want to truly help and serve others. Because the more that we give ourselves permission and the more that we show up and express ourselves in a bigger way, what that does is that it allows others to do the same. It gives others the permission to show up in a bigger way. And one of my biggest lessons that I learned, and I only learned it by having the conversation and having an amazing mentor who challenged me in the best way possible. A shout out to Alex Street. Highly recommend him for so many reasons, but he really helped me unravel and unpack kind of my life story. And what I had realized is that I was living by the expectation of others, and that now I was on this journey of expression and fullest expression. So my childhood, my teenage years, high school, college, marriage, everything was living by the expectation of others and really, really seeking approval, to the point that it paralyzed me to really do so many other things because I didn't want to disappoint. I needed the approval of those closest to me in my life, because that's how I those were my thoughts and feelings in childhood, was really seeking approval. And so once I realized that that was what I was doing, and that all my decisions were based on someone else's belief and someone else's desire on the path I should lead, or the things I should do, or the things that I should say. Once I had the acknowledgement and the awareness of it, then I was like, oh, I need to learn who I am, who Jill is, not the title behind my last name, meaning not daughter or sibling or cousin or granddaughter, not that title, or even title of I was a sales rep or I was a stylist, not that title, but just who am I without any titles? Who is my fullest expression? And that has been my journey the last 13 years. And the greatest gift that I have given myself is the journey, is the journey. And in that, I have learned who I am and owning who I am and owning my voice and standing up in my power. That is my greatest gift. And in that journey has been being able to hopefully make an impact with others because it gives them permission to do the same. And so my journey of risk versus regret is that I have lived a life with the expectation of others and wanting to live a life of my fullest expression and be in the power and the clarity of what that is and what that looks like. And so I think I've mentioned this earlier, but that living a life of regret is a process that we have to unravel. And once I realized that I was living a life of expectation of others, it became really clear that I needed to figure out what my core values and who I was. And my biggest lesson in all of this was that it would require me to get out of my comfort zone, that I was in a lane that I had done my whole life. And that if I wanted a different life, if I wanted to take different actions, if I wanted different results, I had to dive more into me to figure out where my belief system lied and how to get out of my comfort zone to take the different actions to then have the different results. So I Googled the number one, or the top, I should say, the top regrets in life. And here they are in numerical order. So number one, the number one regret that people have is, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That was my life the first 30 plus years. Number two, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And I'm going to say my little asterisk to that. I wish I hadn't worked so hard on pleasing others. I wish I hadn't worked so hard on living a life that someone else expected of me. Number three, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. The whole foundation of this podcast, the Power of Expression podcast. Number four, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. I love that one. And number five, I wish I'd let myself be happier. Those were the top 5 regrets that people had. Other that go along with all of this is they wish they'd been happier and enjoyed life more. Most people regretted the time they wasted worrying about things beyond their control. They didn't realize they were capable of choosing fun and happiness until it was too late. A meta-analysis. Meta-analysis just simply means there was a study of the studies, right? So a study of the studies. A meta-analysis of 11 regret ranking studies revealed that the top 6 biggest regrets in life centered on, number 1, education, number 2, career, 3, romance, 4, parenting, 5, the self, and 6, leisure. So that is the biggest the summary of the biggest regrets in life. So knowing that, how can we show up and express ourselves in a different way and realize that there's risk in everything, right? If you think about it, I mean, there's risk in so many things, but on your dying bed, which is, I know, a morbid thought, but break it to you, we're all going to die, right? But to live a life where you do not have regret, or to live a life where you have less regret. So what does that look like? And then really looking at the risk. So how can you step out of your comfort zone and do the scary thing, whatever that is? And risk. So then I looked up the definition of risk. Risk is the definition, a measure of the extent to which an entity is threatened by a potential circumstance or event. So that's a big, scary, to be threatened by a potential circumstance or event. So of course, when we think about risk, hiking by yourself in the mountains, there's a physical risk, right? So mountain lions, being attacked by animals, getting lost, getting dehydrated, injuring yourself, right? There's that physical risk. But I am really talking more about that emotional, mental risk that your entire body feels, that paralyzes you and you freeze and you don't take the next step, whether it's a career move or a relationship change or a conversation or a question, or just the relationship, career, business, right? The way that we show up in those three areas of our life, the risk of that. There's not any animal that's coming to attack us, but yet our body feels we're so scared that we're frozen, and we don't do that scary, air quote, scary thing, because the risk is scarier than what we think the perceived reward would be. But if we think about in terms of risk versus regret, then that kind of changes up the conversation, and that changes up the degree to which the risk really is and or the regret really is, right? So what helps? This was a question that helps me. What helps lessen the feeling of risk, or what helps lessen the feeling of fear? Because if something feels risky, if we peel back the layers, it feels risky because we're scared. And we're scared because it's outside of our comfort zone. It's outside of what we're used to doing. So what helps lessen the feeling of that fear? Hence the risk. So number one, it's the acknowledgement and the awareness of the feeling. So it's not so much that saying this is risky, it is saying, I am nervous, I am anxious, I am scared to do this thing because it is stepping out of my comfort zone. It's literally saying those words. And saying those words is actually very empowering. And then it lessens the fear. It lessens the risk that you think is involved in it. Number two, it's saying, I am being courageous, and letting that feeling consume you, letting that feeling go from your tippy toes to the top of your head. The opposite of fear is courage. There's no such thing as being fearless. It is doing something in the face of fear, and that is being courageous. Brene Brown, who she's really known for the courage conversation, she says, love this. She says, courage is a heart word. The root of the word courage is cor, the Latin word for heart. In one of the earliest forms, the word courage means to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Wow. So, courage is tapping into your heart and letting your heart lead your way. When you're in your head, you're dead. That is a famous quote. Not sure who says it, but it's a famous quote and I love it. So it is about tapping more into your body. It is about tapping more into your heart and letting your heart lead the way and acknowledging that you're scared and even saying the words out loud, I am being courageous. I am doing it anyways. And then number 3, and this really goes, it's really all kind of one big step, but that is your community. Having a really strong community, having at least a couple friends with you, around you, that you can pick up the phone, that you can go see in person and share all of these feelings and share all of these thoughts. And for them to be a sounding board, for them to hear you and see you and be able to hold space for your fear, to be able to hold space for all the things that you are processing, and then also be able to hold space for you and to be able to say, I am here for you. And you can take that next scary step. And if you fall, I got you. If you fall, you can pick up the phone and I will be there for you. That is literally part of taking the next steps. That is part of realizing to not live a life based on the expectation of others and live a life expressing you. And that the more that you show up for you, the more you give permission to others to show up for themselves. And it is this beautiful infinity 8, right? What you give, you receive. You cannot give what you do not have, and you cannot teach what you do not know. So the more that you dive into you, the more that you even just have the conversation around risk versus regret, no matter what it is, having that conversation with having the inner, it's emotional intelligence, it's EQ, having the vocabulary to be able to use those words, and then having the community where you can reach out and say this entire conversation, and for them to understand you and hear you and hold space. And that will lessen the feeling of risk, and it will lessen the feeling of fear. And then you will take the big, scary next step. And then that will build confidence. You will do the courageous thing in spite of the fear. And then that will build confidence. And then before you know it, you're taking the next step and the next step, and you're taking actionable steps. But it's all connected. If you don't have the awareness and the acknowledgement of where you are, and you don't have the community to truly see you and support you and challenge you, but challenge you in an empowering way, not in a not where they're belittling or mocking you. There is, of course, a significant difference in that. So next time, or maybe right now, you're going through, whether it's a business project, it's a life move, it's a business, a career, a project, a relationship, looking at what is the risk versus regret. And what if taking the next steps just required you to have the acknowledgement within yourself and have the community and have the right questions to support you along the way. And then that allows you to take that next big, scary step. So I hope this helps you in your next step, your big, scary next step. And know that I am your biggest cheerleader. And if you loved this conversation and loved this message, then please pass it on to someone who can benefit from this, and know that we're all in this together. And until next time, have a beautiful day. Express yourself to your next level.